Hey everybody, I'm Mitch, and welcome to my brand new YouTube channel, Made by Mitch. This is my very first video on my new channel. I hope to show you guys some different things I do around the house and show you that you can do it yourself. So today I'm going to be showing you how I built these triangle shelves behind me for my son's room. So let's get started with the build. Hopefully you enjoy. So I had some 3/4 inch plywood sitting around the shop that I wanted to use for these triangle shelves. So I used the joiner jig to flush up one side, and then I could get the straight edge on the opposite side with a table saw. So I cut all these into 3 3/4 inch strips, and I made 9 of them so that way I can have 3 shelves. And the next thing I had to do was cut them to length. So I put the blade at 30 degrees. That's embarrassing. So after I put the blade to 30 degrees, I made all my cuts, and I did all these at 18 inches on the inside angle. And you'll see the design once I show how it kind of is. I didn't do miter edges. I wanted them to be a little bit different. So the next thing I did was I sanded everything and gave it a rough sand. That way the inside of the shelf could be sanded. And I did this up to 220 grit. And for one of the shelves, I painted the inside of the middle just to give it a little bit of a different look. I love that plywood look. The next step was to glue them up. I used Titebond 2 and I was going end grain to the edge, and so I knew I had to put a lot of pressure. So I attempted to use a ratchet strap, and it just didn't work for me. Maybe you've had success in it. If you have, let me know. But for me, it just didn't work out. So I used this thing I saw off of David Picciuto's channel, and that is to use painter's tape. And so I put painter's tape on the edges and held some pressure for some time. And it seemed to work really well. So I'll probably do this again. I just taped up the edges. Then I went in with the brad nailer and I nailed all of where the joints were, and you could see the edges I was going for now. Instead of being that mitered edge, they have a little bit of a different look. The next step is just to fill the nail holes, and I just used some wood filler you can get at your big box store. It seemed to work great for me. I just put it on there, let it sit, I sanded it off, then I put a little bit more on there, let it sit a little bit longer, and then sanded that again. And so after I kind of got all that done, I did a final sand up to 220 grit, iced coffee break necessary. The next thing was just to apply the finish, and I just decided to do a spray shellac type of finish. It's easy, it dries really fast, and so that's what I went with, and it worked out great. The next thing was just to hang the shelves. So I found my studs with a stud finder. Really handy to have a stud finder. If you don't have one, get one. It's necessary. So once I found my studs, I wanted to have one of the screws anchored into the stud, and then the others I didn't have to. I used L brackets that I found at my Lowe's, and it seemed to work really well. I tried using them kind of that upwards way, and then I realized I can maybe hide them if I flip them around. So that's what I ended up doing. To hide the L brackets, I would put the shelf on top of them so you really wouldn't see the L bracket, and it worked really well. I used a self-tapping drywall screw anchor to hold the other L bracket in place. And then I just marked where I needed to put the screws into the shelf. And then with the drill, I just drilled a hole, trying not to go all the way through. I should have used some tape here just to create a guide for myself, but I was just very careful when I did it. Then I marked where the third bracket needed to go, and then I installed it just the same way. Now I could screw them into the shelf, and the L brackets held really well. I'll show a shot here in a second of what they look like. One thing I messed up here, I couldn't fit the drill in the angle of the triangle, so I had to do this by hand. And so make sure when you're installing those brackets you don't put it too close to that edge. And so then I just repeated this process for the remainder of the shelves. Each one of them, one I would put into a stud and the other I would not. This one I didn't need a bottom bracket. I just used the two brackets there that you see, and it worked fine. It held weight well, and it's not like I'm going to be putting a bunch of stuff on here anyways. And so same thing for the third shelf. I just put the 3 brackets on there to fasten it and make sure it was held in there good. And that's what the bracket looks. It's a little bit hidden. It's better than it being flipped the other way. And so these are the shelves in their final product, and I'm really, really happy with the way they turned out. I love that plywood edge look, and it's just a really cool looking shelf. It's not really purposeful as much as it is just cool looking. So that's all for this build. Hopefully that was pretty simple to understand. Please, if you would, leave me some feedback, and I'd love it if you would subscribe and share this video. You can also follow me on Instagram. I try to post there a little more frequently so you can kind of keep up with what's going on. I hope to upload some more builds soon, but it's just kind of based on my schedule right now. So we'll see how it goes. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.